Okay.
This is the episode that you guys didn't know how badly you needed it until we recorded it. You hopefully listened to it.
You might not have even known what it was.
Right. But you might have walked around wondering, why do I feel ungrounded after major life events?
Why do I feel ghosted after an occasion?
Why do I feel emotionally unsettled when I'm moving to a new apartment? Or otherwise. And we'll tell you the reason. It's because you didn't ceremonialize it.
Yep.
So don't worry. Literally have no fear.
We are here.
We are here, going to make it so clear and not steer you wrong.
Don't shed a tear.
Don't shed a tear, because the Ceremonialize Anything episode is here.
And you will be a seer
Of the truth. and so what's really powerful, especially in Venice Beach, is ceremonializing things. I bet you didn't know that you could ceremonialize an apartment move,
a hangout,
a breakup,
a job starting,
a bachelorette,
a wedding.
It's kind of like this meme I saw a while ago where it's like dry hair, coconut oil, like making coconut oil, like problem with boyfriend, coconut oil. It's like ceremonializing things actually like helps so much healing.
Yeah.
So much closing the loop.
Helps you get so much more out of whatever it is that you're doing.
Right. Those takeaways.
Yeah.
As they say.
Yeah.
And so living in Venice Beach, like, of course we joke about ceremonializing, but, you know,
we live it.
And it's very real and it's very powerful. So
yeah,
we laugh, but we also respect
the ceremony.
And this isn't really, I'll just tell you guys anyways, but a wise shaman once told me the ceremony begins after the ceremony.
Yes.
Meaning if we don't take this time to ceremonialize it, which we'll explain what that means, but like put intentionality around something, in other words that aren't LA words, put intentionality around an experience. We actually, our life changes not from that peak experience, but from the tiny shifts after.
Totally. And if you didn't ceremonialize it, how would you even know when it ended? So you could start living.
Or so you could reflect on those takeaways.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So don't worry. We're going to break it down for you. We're going to rewind it back. We're going to answer that first question, which we kind of already answered, but we're just going to make sure it's crystal clear.
We have an expert here, our resident queen of Venice.
Hi. It's me. Hi. I'm the Venice. It's me.
You're not the problem.
Adaptogenic tea time. Everybody agrees.
If you can't tell, we're recording a little later than we usually do, so
things are getting crazy.
Yep.
We've had our adaptogenic CBD beverages.
We have.
Eileen made us some really great tea.
Yeah.
So it literally is tea time.
It is tea time.
Oh my God, Taylor.
It's past tea time.
I know.
We better get started.
It's almost bedtime. Okay.
Okay.
So we're really going to ceremonialize. We're going to ceremonialize this episode.
Yeah.
So you can really live it with us, and then we'll break it down in the nuggets. So the opening ceremony or intention for this episode is to share with you guys a really powerful tool.
Yeah. One thing that I've learned here from Meredith, and that has changed the way I think about spending time with people or changed the way I think about any major event.
Yeah. So our intention is to have fun, to share some wisdom, to hopefully create a blueprint for you guys. This is what we call an opening ceremony, going into the larger ceremony. So I'll like kind of explain what it is. Eileen will share what her experience of it has been, and then we'll talk some quick and dirty takeaways for the different types of things that you can ceremonialize. So to ceremonialize something means really to put intentionality and thought behind it. Not just rushing through it. I know we were joking there, but we're also so serious. And so when you do this, it really also helps you process it because you slow down your experience instead of rushing through it, asking yourself, what energy do I want to take to this? What are my hopes for what I get out of it? And how can I release fears or expectations around it so I can really be present and allow what comes up? And so usually at any ceremony, I'll have an opening intention setting. If it's just yourself, you can set that intention with yourself. If it's with others in a group, like a bachelorette, which we'll have a whole episode on, or a friend weekend getaway even, like what is everyone's intention?
Yeah.
And what are kind of like the ground rules or the values? Like you might say, like, my hope is that everyone, takes the time that they need alone, but that everyone is here for this specific dinner.
Yeah, it takes away all the assumptions.
Right. Because when we assume, we make an ass out of you and me.
Learned that in 4th grade.
I know. Never assume. So always like be clear if like something is important to you, and then you could go around the group. What is the important thing to everyone? Maybe releasing an anxiety and sharing like a deepest intention for the weekend, or like things that they're most excited for or important for. This is huge in friend trips when you realize like, oh,
Yeah.
so-and-so's intention is to, get a lot of sleep this weekend.
Yeah.
Or so-and-so's intention is like we all do like a game night one night.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like a central activity. There's some theme. There's some way they want to feel at the end of it. And it's so important to hear that directly from each person.
Totally. And then during, it's kind of like continuing to check in if you're doing like an experience like that, and kind of have like some part of the arc of the weekend, or it could be during closing ceremonies where you kind of acknowledge different people and reflect back group highlights, individual highlights, and making people feel seen. Like, what did I learn from this person or the group, and what am I taking away with me? Like, how am I taking something that was inspired to me in this weekend and integrating it into other parts of my life, or paying it forward or sharing it.
Love that.
And so with that, Eileen, do you want to kind of share what we did as roommates, opening, closing ceremonies, kind of your first experience with that? And then we can go into some of the nitty gritty.
Wow. Yeah. I guess that is the best place to start because and even before we officially moved in together, when I came out to visit the second time when we were looking for places,
yes,
that was, I think, the first time when I got introduced to the ceremony. And
you never forget your
you
first.
never forget your first. It was magical. But it was so cool because that combined with then once we did move in together, you really had this intention of like, let's set such a solid foundation. Let's establish what we want out of this year together, what we're letting go of, what we're bringing into it, how we can support each other. And also, we share a really close best friend, but we didn't know each other super well, especially in terms of day-to-day just life and how we lived, or we didn't know any of that. And so
it all worked out, as you guys can tell.
Oh my gosh, obviously.
We made it.
We made it through.
How it started, how it's going.
Yeah, exactly. But sharing those things with each other is so powerful because it forces you to own who you are and like what your habits really are and what your preferences really are and what, how you actually live life, maybe what you're trying to work towards. And then also just lay this groundwork with each other of like how you can resolve conflict, what to do even before the conflict, how to address things as they're just bubbling up. And through all of those discussions, and we had a lot of discussions around this, but through that, we formed a beautiful bond in itself because we were able to share these deep parts with each other and ultimately establish how important it was for us to make each other our priority, to always feel seen by each other. And the beauty of it is that we did it. Like, we had the memory of this conversation. We established this dynamic between the two of us. And there were so many moments living together where we had to show up, and we did. And I always felt like you had my back, and I hope the same.
Yes.
And so that was really cool. And I think the other thing I just wanted to say about you introducing me to this ceremonializing in general is it opens up what we call a container, very LA word.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought up the container. Can you explain what the container is? And
I'll try.
we're not just talking about something snug to
Put your soup in.
put your soup or your air fried potatoes in.
None of that.
Yeah,
This is for
spiritual.
feelings and thoughts. But yeah, I mean, I'll do my best, and you too, but it's essentially establishing a discrete period of time and in the context of a place in which you can be 100% focused on whatever the subject of that time or container is. And it's cool because I think about, like, if you sit down with a friend to dinner and you haven't seen them in a while, and maybe one of you's had a breakup, or, you know, one of you's gone through something, like, you're not just going to sit down and start telling them the story. You're going to chat, say hello, kind of just like catch up a little bit, establish. And that's just something we naturally do as humans, where we gear up to things and establish sort of like a baseline. But this is a very explicit way of doing it. And the explicitness makes you feel even more open, so that when you do get to the story time, or you do get to the kind of crux of what's happening in that weekend or that time together, you're immediately so open.
Yeah, I love what you said. And I think, yeah, exactly. The container kind of sets an intention and an agreement between the people in it. And you can have all types of containers. You can have, like, roommate container, friendship container for weekend. People in LA have had all types of different iterations of romantic or physical containers.
True.
Like,
That's true. That was a new one.
they're like, this is my, like, you know,
person, and we just share, special things together.
all types of containers.
All types.
All shapes and sizes. But yeah, it gives you a sense of safety.
Yeah.
Because you know what boundaries you're operating in. So it allows you to relax into that, because there's not uncertainty, because there's been a mutual conversation.
Yes.
Initial vulnerability, initial upfront work of getting clear of, like, what do I want? You know, what is my safe word? No, but, like, what is my...
It's kind of like that.
What is my, like, you know, how can I communicate to this person and trust that, like, if this starts to change form or go in a direction that I don't want, I feel safe and empowered to speak up. I know that they respect my needs. I respect their needs.
Yeah.
So I love that.
And I also know that they're, like, here for it. You know, like, you don't have to have any doubt about what that person is ready to take from you or ready to share. Like, you know, you're in it. We're 100% now committed to whatever we're doing.
Yeah, in this container.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't just have to be, like, romantic, but we were in a roommate container.
Yeah.
Now we're in a podcast host and bestie and lockbox and confident container.
True.
But yeah, so to add on to that, like, beautifully said, Eileen, I think, like, the powerful thing when we talk about the ceremonies in terms of, you know, what we did as roommates, it's, like, really beautiful, because, like, we can talk first, like, getting out what are our deepest fears of living together. And it creates a space to do it ahead of time versus feeling scared to do it when then somebody inevitably does something you don't like.
Yeah.
And so we talked about at our opening ceremonies, like, what are our deepest fears about living together? What are our pet peeves of like having roommates? What is a way that we could communicate feedback to one another?
Yeah.
how can we assume or be reminded that if we bring something up, it's because of our commitment to the highest growth of ourselves as roommates and because we love each other, not because we're trying to call the other out.
Yep.
So then it laid the foundation and the trust of like, if Eileen brings something up to me, I can take it as her wanting the best for us in our house, which like, you know, there were things brought up that year, but it was all...
You guys have heard some of them.
Yeah, you've heard some of them. At one point we had a bug problem as well, but they were all brought up from such a place of like, this is for the highest good of our house. I'm not accusing you. We're assuming best intentions for both our parts here. And then we also got to vision of like, what do we both want to get out of it together? What kind of things do we want to host? What kind of things do we want to vision? And how do we want to hold each other to our own individual highest growth here? And then we we set that container, which again, does a few things. It makes us feel safe. It gives us framework and vocabulary for how to communicate with the other. Yep. And then it also gave us reference points to check in. And we did kind of like a roomie night every 2 weeks or so where we had an opportunity to really like bond and reconnect to those visions.
Totally.
As well, which the opening ceremonies laid a solid foundation for. And then, as you guys guessed it, when Eileen and I moved out of our roommate situation, we also had a closing ceremony.
Oh my God. That was like one of the most emotional nights.
I know. Wow. The journey never ends.
Yeah.
Even if a chapter closes.
Totally.
17 South Venice.
Oh my God. Forever we love you.
Shout out to Handyman Tony. If you're listening, we love you.
We love you so much. Thank you for everything. Wow. I just got emotional thinking about it.
Oh my God.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, and I love what you said just about, you know, how it sets up all the in between where you do get to build then. And it felt like we could launch so much quicker into our roommate relationship, friendship. And just to highlight as well, this holding each other as your highest self and trusting the best intentions with each other has been such a fundamental thing. So, you know, of course you create your container however you want to, but that's one I would super recommend because it makes everything else so much easier.
Yes, I completely agree. Just like, yeah, it's kind of like imagining having a bookshelf with like books kind of falling off. They're like, where do I stand? I don't know. Yeah. And you have the book, what are those called?
Oh, the
book stoppers.
I literally have one right there.
But yeah.
God knows.
But you guys get it. It keeps the books in place on either end. Just like seals it on both sides so it's not like
exactly that.
Runny.
Yeah, know? Just falling out, wondering, letting its imagination wander.
And then in our closing ceremonies, we like reflected on what were our highlights from our time together. How have we grown? How will we take the spirit of that special chapter with us individually? And like, what are our fears? We also did, what are our fears about our relationship now that we're not going to be roommates?
Yeah.
And how can we support each other in that transition to still make each other feel like we're a priority in each other's lives and still keep that communication channel open.
True.
As well.
Because part of it was like, we're doing this closing ceremony. We're closing this container of roommates. And how do we now open a new one that's much larger and sort of infinite, you know?
Right. And I think that gave me peace because you had become my confidant that year. And I had a fear, like, what if Eileen and I don't live together and we like don't see each other and it fades out. And so it felt good to like be able to say like, I hope it doesn't happen. What are some things that we can do to continue to like nourish our friendship and give each other that peace of mind in that transition that we're like not going anywhere, even though we're not going to like see each other as much as we do as roommates.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. And that sort of brings me back to what I said at the beginning, which I don't know how that was interpreted, but about like feeling ghosted at the end of something. But it really is like the closing ceremony in my mind is it's, yeah.
So important.
It's like if you were dating someone for 6 months and then they just ghosted you, like, or even a month or a few weeks or whatever, you know, there's like, what happened? What's going on? Where do we stand? Is this ever going to happen again? You know, like what is this? And I think it's the same thing with these friendship or event or whatever containers. Like the closing ceremony establishes, this is what we've done. This is how we all feel about it. Like, this is where we're going. And it just gives you that sense of closure so that you can then start the next thing together.
Totally. And that's why, and we'll talk more about this we've talked about how I did a closing ceremony at my wedding, and everyone shared their takeaway and how they'd take mermaid's energy throughout the rest of their time. But it's something that I've always led at my friends' opening and closing ceremonies, what I've led at my friends' bachelorettes, and we can talk about a few examples of how we do that. And of course, we'll talk about my bachelorette in our other episode, but also just a brief anecdote for this one. You led the opening ceremony at my bachelorette and then had everyone share a highlight from the wedding, which you knew because I did my bachelorette after the wedding, which I also recommend.
Yeah.
Because you can really enjoy it. You're not stressed. And then
so chill.
You get to forego the wedding blues because everyone's recounting it. You still feel so special.
Yeah.
So you led that. And then Sunday morning, closing ceremony was on the itinerary, but there was a lot going on. One of our friends was sick. A few people had to leave early for a flight. A few other people wanted to hit the road early to avoid traffic. And because I always lead closing ceremonies for other people, for other friends' bachelorettes, for our roommate situation, and it does actually really matter to me and help me feel grounded. And they can be quick too. But I was I need to speak up about the importance of this before a bunch of other cars head out.
Yeah.
And that was a moment which you helped me do, and our friend Sarah and Lauren, of vocalizing my need for that closing ceremony.
Yeah.
And then everyone shared their highlight from the weekend and a highlight of their friendship with me.
Well, and that's the thing. That's where I think the power of the closing ceremony was clearer than ever, because it was sort of heading in this direction of maybe this just sort of we just sort of scatter and the weekend ends.
And I think there was an energy because a few people are we're hitting the road early to avoid traffic, that other people are should we hit the road
exactly
early to
and then
avoid
it
traffic?
Starts this whole thing.
It started this whole domino effect, and I was I need to vocalize my ask for this because I would never leave another weekend
unfinished. And I think it's so good that you did, because what ended up happening is when we did that sharing and we all went around, every single girl started sobbing.
Yeah. And
it was none of us knew that we were going to. None of us had that feeling we were going to cry. And then each person started talking, and it was just tears started coming out. Emotions were welling. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't negative, but it was, it was such a perfect example of everyone actually needing that as well and not even realizing it.
Totally. Yeah. No, and that was really beautiful. And it felt like it slowed everyone down and really also helped me kind of ground in the energy of the weekend of being around my friends, helped me with my processing of the weekend. And it was really grateful that we were able to make that happen. And it only lasted 5 minutes. Again, it can be super short.
Yeah.
But it's just that slowing down and reflection of what were the highlights? What were the takeaways? How do I want to take this with me?
Yeah. And then we could all leave with such calm peace of having released whatever we needed to, having bonded, having connected with each other and acknowledged each other. And it just goes to show that if you have this feeling of energy, something is missing or something needs to be completed or something needs to be addressed, it's probably not only serving you, but all the other people around you who may just not be aware of what can be done.
Right. Exactly. And then I guess this point isn't directly related to ceremonializing, but it's also vocalize the thing that you need to feel complete in something. Well, I guess it is because like
Yeah.
it's your ceremony or you're partaking in it.
Yeah.
So like vocalize your needs.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I was like, I went into the Bachelorette being like, I'm just going to surrender to what everyone does and creates. And so many women did such a great job and above and beyond, yourself included. And there was, on Sunday, I was like, I need to like intervene in my surrender and like vocalize something that's important to me.
Yeah.
Because our friend who would have like helped make that happen was like quite sick. And so she's better now and we love her and she was an all-star that weekend.
She really was.
But yeah, it's like vocalize the thing that you need or you desire to feel complete in something.
Yeah.
So you can do it for yourself and your future self.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
So with that, like there's a few other types of ceremonies. Like these are group ones that we're talking about. And I did the same opening and closing ceremony with, or not closing, knock on wood, opening ceremony with Spencer when we moved in together.
Yeah.
No closing ceremonies there. We just do closing ceremonies when we do our quarterly couples offsites.
Yeah.
Well, even for quarterly couples offsites, which Spencer and I will do, we'll set an opening ceremony for the weekend, what we hope to get out of it, and then closing, what were our takeaways. Yeah. Okay, so let's now transition into how to ceremonialize like a life event.
Yeah. Okay.
And this can be an internal or solo journey that you go on.
True. Okay. Take a deep breath.
I know I was going to say, we kind of said like, let's open the space, but I'm like, damn, we should have actually done like a few breaths for our opening.
I know we could have done a proper opening ceremony,
but we'll do a closing moment.
Which if you're a longtime pod listener, you'll remember we used to start that way.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah. Maybe we still start with like 2 or 3 deep breaths. What do you want to get out of this episode? Really quick. And then we close it with like a little and or journaling questions.
I like that, guys. Let us know what you think.
Yeah. Let us know what you think. You're hearing the ideation in real time.
Yeah.
But I like that where it's like quick.
Yeah.
3 breaths, centering.
Yeah.
Whole episode. Medi if it feels lined, journaling regardless, takeaways.
Perfect.
Great. Okay, you guys heard it here first.
But yeah, I think ceremonializing an event was obviously another thing that you really introduced me to. And similar, but yeah, just internal, it creates an opening for you to acknowledge everything that has happened, that will happen. A good example, I think, or just one that I've been thinking about so much, is, and of course we're talking about like big events, jobs, marriages, relationships, friendships, personal goals, achievements, whatever it may be. But COVID is actually something I've been thinking about a lot.
Interesting.
As a personal journey more so, but the fact that it sort of feels like everyone needs to do their own personal opening, closing ceremony for it, because it feels like there was never like really an official end. It just sort of like slowly has tapered away out of
our lives, but it's changed our lives so much.
Exactly. And so I think about it in the sense of like, we haven't really acknowledged it. Like so much has changed in the past 3 years, but like we've just stopped talking about it. And it's like all of a sudden now everything's different and it's just the way it is. And it's up to you to kind of keep comparing or cross-referencing the before and the now. And so I think of that as an example of like for life events, giving yourself that space and not just feeling like you have to run to the next thing.
I love that. Yeah. Similarly, it's like that slowing down and that acknowledgement. How has this helped me grow? How has something, even if it was challenging, how can I look at it as leading to my wisdom?
Yeah.
Or where can I go from here? And I think COVID, that's a super interesting one. I wasn't expecting you to say that, actually.
I know.
Eileen just got recovered from COVID.
That's true, too. Maybe that's top of mind. But it's something I also was talking about. I've been talking about with more people, of them just being like, hey, yeah, you're right. Like, it's so weird. We just forgot about it.
Should we close the container?
Should we do it for everyone?
Watch this space for a COVID container closing.
Love it.
But yeah, and it's like acknowledging all the things, because all of us had such different journeys in COVID.
Yeah.
Some people pivoted jobs, some people lost loved ones, some people got long-term COVID. Like so many, it impacted people in so many different ways, like lows,
good and bad,
highs, that it is good to acknowledge like both.
What did that mean? Yeah.
What did that mean? And where do we go from here? And other examples of that I've ceremonialized on a personal level. When I folded my alcoholic kombucha company, I ceremonialized it. And if you're doing a solo ceremony, I'd like to kind of start off. You don't really have an opening and closing ceremony, if you know what I mean. You just have the ceremony.
Sure.
If it's not like an experience. If it's an experience, just to clarify, you guys, if it's an experience like a bachelorette party with a start and end, opening, closing ceremony, obvious. If it's like you're ceremonializing the end of a relationship or your company, then it's just a ceremony.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
That makes sense.
But who are we to tell you how to ceremonialize?
Do what you want.
You want an opening and a closing ceremony in your ceremony?
Yeah, that might help you drop into it.
Yeah. But the ceremony does have a clear beginning, middle, end. So like for my beverage company, I ceremonialized it by first giving gratitude to that journey, to the beverage, to the other people who helped me along the way, to that version of myself, all the things that I learned. And then I also wrote up like the things that I felt were hard around it and let out like whatever rage or anger or the things like, you know, wasted time or frustration or walls I came up against. I wrote a kind of like angry letter to it / myself and like ripped it up and allowed myself to burn it. And then also like on the other side of that, then wrote the compassion for myself that I was doing the best I could with what I had and what I learned from it. And then how I want to take that learning into my next chapter. Who is that version of Meredith who has integrated those learnings? And then once again, closing the ceremony with gratitude.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the arc. It's like opening up with the gratitude, letting out the rage, the anger, burning it, or having some sort of like rage release. Maybe you do a breath work. Maybe you scream into your pillow. Then like the compassion, the acknowledgement of the growth, and then the vision, the next chapter. Where do we go from here? And then kind of gracefully letting it go. Now you can follow that blueprint
you sure can.
For $5.99 on powerfulstuff.com. No, but you can follow that blueprint also for a cord cutting ceremony around a relationship or a friendship. You know, you obviously don't give the person that rage letter, but you can start off with gratitude, write that fuck you letter that you're never going to send, burn it, then acknowledge like they're doing the best they could with what they had, acknowledge your role in it, what you're taking from it, and your next step, and like gracefully thank them and energetically close your eyes and imagine cutting a cord and them floating away and you waving. Bye.
And cord cutting is exactly what it sounds like. It's releasing whatever the energetic hold is between you and someone else. And you can think about this like there might be people in your life you don't even talk to, but sometimes you can feel this like tension, or you feel, you know, maybe you're wondering what they're thinking.
Energetic tar.
Yeah, exactly.
Like this heaviness, like I just need to get that person's energy out of my field.
Yeah, and you can be aware of it if you're like thinking a lot about them, or if you're like worried about what they're thinking.
And or if they're still popping into your orbit somehow,
exactly.
Like peripherally.
Yep, that's all signs that it's time.
And with that, with all of these individual ceremonies, obviously we recommend sage and Palo Santo.
We do.
That
was the other thing I wanted to say.
We take it so obvious here in Venice, but it is highly recommended. You set your space in your ceremonies. So you dress up for yourself. You take a nice bath.
Yeah.
You feel clean. And then you like light your candles.
Yeah.
Burn your incense. What were you going to say?
Well, just we love now romanticizing everything, and this is the ultimate romanticizing of life.
Right. And again, with that slowing down, taking extra intention, not just rushing through the ceremony to get the result.
Yeah.
But like be in the process of the ceremony. Like I'm going to put rose petals everywhere.
Yeah. I'm going to be really focused. I'm not going to be distracted. Like that's a rare time just with you and yourself.
I'm going to make a little altar with my rocks.
Yeah. I'm going to honor myself and nature in this world that I live in.
Yeah. And I want to share 2 other different ceremonies, and then we could
Let's
do a
it.
closing
I
ceremony.
might have one too if it's not one of yours.
Oh my God. Okay. Wow. So yeah, with that kind of one that I just described, you could do it releasing something. That's a good release one to think of, like releasing an old job, releasing an old friendship. And then of course you can have a ceremony to set an intention for a job or a new chapter, like
which you've led me through many times.
yes. Where it's like, what is my intention? Again, kind of like, it's like an opening ceremonies, if you will.
Yeah.
What's my intention for this new job? How do I want to show up? What am I grateful for? What do I want to remind myself?
Huge.
Of my worth, of who I am.
Huge.
What are my fears? And how can I support myself, remind myself I know I'm safe through those? And what's the deepest possibility here?
Yeah.
But yeah, so the 2 that I was going to say, one is full moon, new moon, which I want you to talk about.
You got it.
You just threatened me with a good time. And the other ceremony, obviously I say we, but obviously I have sat through many a plant medicine ceremony, which I'll explain in a second. So I guess those are my 2, and I'll give you the full moon and new moon to dive into because you're our astrology expert. But the other one I was going to say, actually, it's really beautiful. I just thought of it once. I told my husband, Spencer, that you guys might hear sometime. And he is doing voice lessons now.
So he's getting ready.
He's getting ready.
Well,
he
we
has
have a
mic. He has my voice teacher who, she's so cool. She boated around Fiji with her husband.
Wow.
For months and would do our voice lessons on Starlink.
Oh my God, so cool.
I know. If you guys need a good
Elon.
voice teacher, shout out to my friend Reslo who recommended Kate and I, and shout out to Kate, who is the voice teacher. But yeah, she's amazing. So anyways, once I was telling Spencer, I wasn't feeling fully seen by him in all areas. And so he did a ceremony acknowledging all parts of me.
Oh.
And he made a, what are those things called when you go into a Broadway play? Like
a playbill?
Yeah, he made a playbill that's like a night at home with Meredith.
Oh my God.
Like August something,
that's
2023.
So cute.
Or like a celebration of Meredith at home.
Yeah. So professional.
And it was like a photo of me.
Oh my God.
And then it had like 7 different sides of me listed out. And then he got like 7 different candles.
Yeah.
And he talked about each side of me. He was like, this is for like the friend Meredith, who I always see you showing up and giving to other people, and like lit that one. And then he's like, this is for the creative Meredith. I always see you writing songs and da-da-da-da-da. And then we lit the 7 candles. And then he had a jar that he had me pull out things one by one of all the things he saw in me. And then at the end of the night, okay, everyone. Wow. As I was saying before, you know what? Sometimes ceremonies don't go as planned. And we had a technical diff. We had a tech diff.
We did. We used it to turn the fireplace on.
We went to the bathroom separately.
The fear you had to mention separately.
And and we're back. So as I was saying about Spencer, he did that ceremony for me. We had the candles, 7 components of Meredith, many qualities of mine in a jar. And then at the end, we visioned high self Meredith with all these parts existing. And then I blew out each candle and thanked each part of myself, which was such a sweet ceremony.
That's so sweet.
And it was such a good reminder. I was like, I've trained him well.
You really have. I mean, that is your ultimate protege.
It was like reflected back to me, and I'm like, the student and and the teacher. No. But now it's sweet. Every time we go up to our cuddle den, which is our meditation room, and he asked me which part of Meredith would I like to honor that night.
Oh.
And then I light the candle of that part of me.
That's so seen.
I feeling the most seen.
I love that.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about full and new moon ceremony? And then we'll end it with the ceremonies that everyone's been wondering about.
Yes, exactly. The full moon, new moon have been some that we've started recently. It's been a slow build, and now it's so fun. So basically, there's a component of it that's just, it's astrologically related. So we're understanding what sign the moon is in, what are the different aspects and placements at that moment, and what are they going to be in the next 2-week cycle. And we get to really hone in on what the theme is for that. And it allows us to all still focus on and clear the things that are top of mind in our personal lives, but through a certain lens that connects us all. So then we have some moments of journaling, sharing, and it's really cool because while we all start out with the same story, everyone winds up sharing such unique parts of themselves. And then we end it, like I said, looking at, because the moon takes these 2-week cycles, it's really perfect because you can very concretely set your intention for those next 2 weeks, something you want to accomplish, something you want to let go of, and then come back at the next new or full moon and check in. And so it's a very cool example of this ceremony evolving into a very predictable cycle.
Right, like little consistent ceremonial check-ins.
Exactly.
And new moons, yeah, like you said, like being this like, what do I want to create in these next 2 weeks? And the full moon being a time of release to create space for that creation.
Exactly, because the whole idea is to, and people get always a little weirded out by the astrology, but it's just living in alignment with nature. Like we are nature, we're in it. And so it makes life a lot easier when we're following the same cycles. So as the moon is building, we're building. As the moon is hiding, disappearing in the sky, we're hiding, we're releasing. And I even think of it, if you don't want to focus on any of that, it's just an excuse to get a little witchy, to just feel connected to yourself.
Get your witch on.
And for example, like Halloween, it fell on a Saturday, the parties fell on a Saturday, which was a full moon. And
coincidence?
Think not. And I had been planning to go out. I thought I would. I wanted to. And then the day came and I realized, you know what? It's a full moon tonight. I'm feeling excited to kind of like dive into it. And I used it not really as an excuse, but for lack of a better word, an excuse to stay in, have my own night to myself, and
get out the cauldron.
Yeah, hang out. Exactly. And because you have this theme around it, like you're not then just wasting time and kind of escaping from yourself, but you're focused on something.
Yeah, another way to think of it for those of you who aren't yet comfortable with the LA terms, which will give you a whole lexicon of these at the end too, but for full and new moon, it's like monthly reflection.
Literally. Yeah.
Goal setting.
Yeah.
Check-in.
Yeah.
Like, what did I learn this month? How
Exactly.
am I growing from it? How am I releasing it? And Eileen and I actually did 2 full moon ceremonies with others. One was a soft launch for powerful stuff on a full moon, and we took people hiking up Los Leones, and then we sat at the top. Eileen talked about the astrology of the full moon, and then we each shared something we were releasing. We did a meditation around releasing it and inviting that thing that we were releasing to turn into soil.
Yeah.
And a new seed to be planted. And then we all shared on the other side of that meditation. what that new space that was created or what came up in our vision for how we're ready to move forward.
Yeah, that was so fun.
That was powerful.
It was spooky and cool.
Spooky. And then we did another one at the beach. We're so blessed in LA with all these full moon
are.
places. But where we similarly, Eileen led us through the astrology. We all shared what we were releasing. The new moon, you might share what you're cultivating. And then we burned it in a metal bowl, which was pretty cool.
That
Obviously,
was fun.
Consult yourself and your local
Fire department. Always check
Ours
in.
was on the sand and it was totally safe. And then we burned it and then did a little late night dip in the ocean under the stars. Some of us just did our toesies.
I got a little scared at the end.
Some of us did a full submersion.
But I do recommend a night swim. Not too dangerous, not too deep, but just get in there.
Just right.
Just
Goldilocks.
I did actually do that in Costa Rica this past December. Went with a group of friends, and it was so fun because they're old friends from New York and have known me forever in all my phases of life. And so to be able to share this with them was so cool because this is so not a part of their world, and they're very much on the opposite end of what you said, like goal setting and check-ins, and they have different words for these things. But was able to lead them through a full moon on the beach and then did dive in. I was the only one who jumped in the ocean and mermaided.
Powerful.
It was so fun.
That was, wow. True Eileen element, fairy, aquatic fairy.
Oh my God, totally.
Those are really powerful ones to do every 2 weeks. Consult your powerful stuff Instagram for Eileen's updates on the astrology.
Yes, we'll give you some pointers, some questions, some things to think about.
Some things to ponder. And then you all might be wondering, before we take this home, distill it.
The elephant in the room.
Okay, you guys made an episode on ceremonializing everything. Are you going to talk about plant medicine ceremonies? We know what you people in LA do. You might be thinking.
I've heard about all the mushrooms and
the
therapies.
Therapies. And that ayahuasca. It's ayahuasca. But to be honest, many a plant ceremony has been had personally. And my biggest takeaway was when I first experienced some of them in my early 20s, I was kind of seeking that peak experience or that silver bullet to give me an answer at the ceremony. And what I realized from sitting with different shamans of different lineages, of different, medicines.
Different countries.
I realized that there's no silver bullet in that the ceremony, and a few of the shamans and people I've sitting with had in my earlier 20s have reflected back to me. It's not about rushing through it or going super deep to get the most out of it, but it actually comes in the small, subtle shifts and slowing down and being intentional and moving slower after a ceremony so you can notice more. Because when you notice more, you have more awareness. And when you have more awareness, you have more agency. And so actually this guy, Oliver, who Eric and I just had on our podcast for more of that, who runs a community or a co-working space and community center here, or maybe he didn't talk to us about it. I actually think I was doing research and he talked about it on another podcast.
Nice. You're a good host.
But said that ceremonies help. They're there's an island and there's a telescope. And the ceremony kind of dusts off the telescope, but it's still the same amount of distance to the island.
Wow.
So it kind of gives you a vision of where you can go.
Yes.
But it doesn't fix anything for you, and you still have to make the journey.
That is the best description I've heard, and it's so real.
But I definitely want to give Oliver a shout out because that's definitely not
what
that's
huge.
But he articulated it.
He articulated it perfectly.
In a perfect way where some people go into ceremonies or what we call as peak experiences, which can also be an experience you have a lot of expectation around.
It can be just like a party as well. We don't really talk about that, but
yeah, and so when you slow down and you set the intention and you're with it for the process, the journey, the unfolding, you're not expecting to leave it having all the answers. You're expecting to leave it with a little bit more knowledge, knowing that the integration of it, the takeaways, is what eventually changes your life and gives you the result that you wanted in the first place. And so that's what I realized after my early 20s, is like not doing ceremonies to to chase peak experiences, to cheek
or to cheat.
Yeah, or to cheat, but rather to witness myself and how I show up in the ceremony. And that, like, the medicines don't have any of, they're not withholding answers from you.
Yeah.
But more so helping uncover blind spots, but it's still up to you to do the work after. Nothing is going to change if you don't do the work. And that's why I have seen in plant medicine ceremonies, other people get depressed after because they have this euphoric vision or this peak experience. And then they're like, great, well,
I'm so far away from it. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do I get there?
How do I get there? Or they think it's perfect in the ceremony. They're in a beautiful setting, and then they come out of it into real life and they're tested. And instead of showing up as that person who they got a glimpse of in the ceremony, they're like, oh, I guess change isn't possible. And so
and that's also, not to go into addiction really, but that's where that addiction cycle starts, because you think you can only have it then when
it's outside of yourself.
Exactly.
And so that's why what I said at the top of the episode, the ceremony begins after the ceremony is so do it. Yeah. It's so funny because you have to do it the 3 times.
I know, I'm really gentle with it, I realize. Yeah. I need to just go for it.
But it's like if you do it once, it sounds so different.
Yeah, it's
a full trio.
Not quite it.
But that was great.
Thanks.
Perfect timing. But yeah, it's like if you're just going for that peak, you're going to feel even more depressed after, because there's missed expectation. And that's why setting an intention and then allowing possibility and then recounting at the end, what do I want to take away and how do I want to continue to show up and do the work? That's where the change from any ceremony comes.
Any experience, anything. Yeah.
Right. So what am I going to take with me from it? And what I've learned from all the different cultures, lineages that of whether it's a medicine or, like you said, meditation and yoga and, all of these different cultures really understand that connection back to self comes with the slowing down, the paying homage, the setting intentions, the coming back to self versus just like rushing through the process of something.
Totally. And we could probably launch into a whole second podcast from this point, but we definitely wanted to acknowledge that this idea of ceremonializing stems back thousands of years in so many different cultures and religions. And it's all the same theme of, as Meredith said, slowing down, clearing yourself enough so that you can then see clearly, what you're trying to address or uncover or just see yourself more clearly.
Right. And then treating every day as a ceremony.
Exactly.
What's my intention for today? Which I do in my morning routine, kind of like, how do I want to feel by the end of today? Like, or who is that? What would success feel like for me? Not basically necessarily what I achieve, but how would I feel? How would I feel in my downtime, in my conversation with that friend?
Mm-hmm.
And like, what is the energy I want to emit? And then focusing on that. And similarly, at the end of the day, reflecting, like, what am I proud of today? What do I want to release so I don't carry it with me tomorrow?
Wait, yes. I love your morning routine and nighttime routine are really just your opening and closing ceremonies.
That's so true, because at my nighttime routine, I have my one line a day where I reflect on my gratitude. So it's like...
And culturally, we're so obsessed with those things, but I feel like we really lack the connection of what it's for. And so that's what we're trying to do here.
Right. Life is one big ceremony. That's so true. And what we're going to get to before we wrap up with our closing ceremony of how to ceremonialize anything is you might be wondering, okay, I don't live in Venice Beach. My friends think this is weird. Eileen and I are going to give you some subtle ways to bring the ceremony into your life, your friendships, without throwing people into the deep end.
Yes.
So you might be wondering, what's another way for saying, like, guys, let's do an opening ceremony? If you're at a bachelorette or bachelor party or friend trip, you can say, what's everyone's intention for this weekend? What does everyone want to get out of this weekend?
What are you guys excited for?
And then at the end, you can say, like, what was everyone's favorite part?
Yeah.
What was your favorite memory from the weekend?
Yeah.
Who was your favorite person connecting with this weekend?
Yeah, just eliminate the trigger words and just
the spiritual trigger words for non-spiritual people.
Exactly, in your own voice.
Yeah. And then as Eileen said, like the container, another word for container is like the people you're in the experience with. I guess it's not another word. It's multiple words.
Yeah, but yeah.
Or like feeling safe to drop in being like a deep conversation. Once my friend from SF was like, what is it? What do you mean you didn't get a drop in with that person? I'm like, we didn't have a deep chat.
We used to call them DMCs.
Deep, meaningful chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that.
That's that with our deep, meaningful chat. So should we closing ceremony?
Let's close.
Okay, so if everyone wants to close your eyes, take a deep breath in, breathing in this episode, what you've learned from it, exhaling it out, feeling it wash over your body, taking a deep breath in, anything that you want to release or leave behind from the episode or what it brought up for you. Exhale, releasing that out. And then third and deepest breath in, turning your gaze inward. Asking yourself how you've grown, how you've shifted, a new thought that's come up, a little glimmer from this time that you've spent with powerful stuff, exhaling that out. Just keeping your eyes closed for another moment. Breathing in, noticing any shifts internally that you've had since the beginning of the episode. Bringing awareness to those shifts and where they are. And then seeing you on the other side of this episode, maybe in the next week. How does that version of you show up ever so slightly differently with more intentionality because you've started ceremonializing a little bit more in your day-to-day? Is there anything you want to add in this meditation?
I think it's picturing yourself as the center of your own little universe and romanticizing the actions you have to do and the steps you have to take, perhaps comfortable or uncomfortable, and treating these ceremonies like you've got your own back.
Treating it like you've got your own back. How does that feel to feel grounded, connected to yourself, allowing for that trust to ripple into every other area of your life, taking a deep breath in. As you exhale, come back into this space, opening your eyes. And as we close out this ceremony, remembering the questions that you can take with you to any ceremony. What is my intention for this? How do I want to feel? Is there any deepest fear that I want to release, if it's a future thing? Or is there anything, any rage or resentment I want to release if you're ceremonializing the closing of a chapter? How has it made me grow? What do I want to acknowledge in myself? And what is my excitement or vision for the path forward? What's one small step I can do to put that into action? Wow. We hope that was as powerful for you
as it was for us.
As it was for us.
We certainly got a lot out of it.
We got a lot out of it, and we will be taking so much from this episode.
It's always a good reminder.
Always a good reminder. Even my personal ceremonial takeaway from this is, Meredith, you can continue to slow down.
Yeah.
Because you guys had no idea, but I was faking it till I make it about slowing down on this episode. No, I'm joking. But
we
always
move
room for
fast.
improvement.
We move fast.
We move fast.
We like to, but
yeah.
We have to remember.
But slower than when we were in New York.
That is true.
Right.
Facts.
Progress. And faster than we would be if we lived
in San Diego.
Or Costa Rica. Anyways. Wow.
Well,
let us know what kind of ceremonies you guys do.
Please do let us know if you do try this with yourself or with your friends in your explicit or covert ways.
Yes, that's right. Wink, wink. You say intention, we know you mean, which is ceremony.
We got you.
Okay, well, everyone, we look forward to hearing more. We are excited to see you spiritually and metaphorically in our next episode. And thanks for listening to
Powerful Stuff.
Thank you for listening to the Powerful Stuff podcast. We're your hosts, Meredith Baker
and Eileen+Mer. We hope that you learned some powerful stuff that you can take away and implement into your own life.
And if you do, we would love it if you rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast, Powerful Stuff. And if something deeply resonates with you and you share it on social media, tag us. We would love to hear from you. And we will also see you next week for some more powerful stuff.